nationals. My name is Amrit. My preferred gender pronoun is they. I would like to go around it, starting with OG. Tell us what. Identify yourself and its gender.
She. My name is Anazra. Gender pronouns preferable for she.
I am Selini. I prefer she.
Hi, Anna. My gender pronoun is she.
Hello, my name is Kieran and my preferred gender pronoun is he.
Hi, Alicia. She.
Husband, he. Ali.
Alright. My name is Amrit Gasset, and these are my trainees. So, I'll keep time. Room for it? Yeah, yeah. Sorry, wait, because IIUM, right?
Yes. In the world right now, even though there has been development in the history in regards to the female status or the elevation of the female status, we believe that it is still hard for the female to make a big breakthrough and achieve their place in the society itself, right? Why? Even in the White House report that was recently released, there's still a marginal difference between the salary that a male is getting and a female is getting. This shows and proves to you that there is still a difference between the treatment given to a male and to a female. And in the current status itself, you can see that within the parliament, the people who are most likely to get voted is the males themselves due to the gender preferable things, gender by the people, right? Because they believe that male can do a better. The established males in order to gain a spot in the parliament and to show that they are as good as men, or even sometimes in certain cases they are better than men. It's hard for them to establish this when they aren't even given a chance in the first place. We're saying that today's debate is similar to the quota system that has been taken and enacted by certain kind of companies, right? Whereby you do have to have a certain quota for the females. And moreover, right, sit down first. Moreover, we believe that in order for you to have a campaign, you need a large financial capital in order to establish yourself as a runner for this campaign itself. Therefore, we believe that we acknowledge there's a myriad of people campaigning during the election season, but we believe at the end of the day, even though they have difference in political experiences, the one common thing that all of these candidates have is that they do care about the future of the country and they do want to make a change for their country itself, right? Like even you can see in Canada and itself that it's an unprecedented case. Who does not really have yes.
How do you ensure that they are qualified if you can only vote in based on gender?
Okay, sit down. As I already told you, the thing qualification is very but the thing that you have all these people about their country, choose what kind of qualifications they have, because even John Trudeau, he doesn't really have explicit political qualifications based on his interest in the country itself. So therefore, even if the qualifications one thing that makes you a politician is your interest and your love for your country and are evidence of the feminist movements because on a daily basis they see that the females are pitted against each other, right? Such as in the cases of free nipple movement, or even in cases of slap-ons, right? You can see that even some movements criticize against the people who are having those kind of campaigns. Therefore, people think that the feminist movement has achieved what it intended to achieve, and there is no longer need for its establishment. At the end of the day, because they see that even females are fighting against females, that they feel that the feminist movement has no goal or no unity at all. Therefore, they feel that they shouldn't give their support. Even the fancy are not like, where should I stand, right? Because I think it's relevant, spitting against each other and fighting against each other. I don't really know what's the purpose of the feminist movement anymore. We believe that there's a right for that. Everyone has a right to freedom of speech. But when this right of freedom of speech harms the progression of the country or harms a particular party, this kind of right can be taken away. Therefore, we believe that this right is compelled to vote just based on their gender because there's a moral duty to do so as a feminist. Because right now, the situation in the feminist world is so bad that people think it's unrelevant. We believe that it is relevant, and we believe one way to show the people that it is relevant is in order to have a united movement. And in order to show this, when all the for a particular politician is one way to establish it. People believe that sometimes they believe that people shouldn't be sure sit down, but we believe when you are electing a politician, it gives a same collective benefit to everyone who votes for the politician. Because at the end of the day, it's easier to materialize the policy making when you do have one female representative. Right? So at the end of the day, politicians will always listen to the people. At the end of the day, by giving always relationship, not the within the parliament because that's based on the agenda. We say two responses to this. Firstly, it's a parliamentary seating, right? Therefore, all these politicians ensure that always like a big given second response is that there's always resistance to change, right? This is not mutually exclusive to only this situation. We believe that maybe initially they wouldn't like it, but after having the female on the board itself, after seeing all the changes that she can make, they would be more inclined to accept the female representatives. That's why we believe that you should just vote based on gender and not other things. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. We open the side of open opposition. Let's invite the leader of opposition. Thank you, everyone. Is key.
Hi, hello. So I was almost confused whether are we debating about feminists in Malaysia or like taking other people's example and trying to apply it in our country. So let me just go to the rebuttal first. So her whole speech is telling us how there is a lack of female representation in the politics world. With that, we must elect female just because of their gender. Because the thing here, the problem case that they build upon is that politicians are the one that is going to make change. If you just vote someone because of their gender and not disregard their qualification, you don't have a bad politician, and that country slowly will be bad. Yeah. Change for the country. We cannot just blindly elect someone just because they are women and that they know concede that they are women, that women, they are educated, and they are the educated one are the ones that are supposed to be voted in, not the ones that just because they are genders only. So moving on. So talking about how they talk about how feminism is essential when people are voting for voting for females, and then somehow they will feel that feminism is sort of important. Feminism is important, but by just solely voting females into the politics does not show that feminism is working. Feminism should always be something that is rational, and what they're going is more to the Nazi side of feminism. So yeah. Okay, so moving on. So what we're going to talk about today, right? No, hold on, I'm not done yet. So the objective from our side, the opening up, is that we want to incentivize women to still seek for knowledge and compete with other fair male counterparts. That's one. And two, we want to create an eligible politician who best represent the demands of women. So the thing here is that we want women to be represented, but the ones not are the ones that are not qualified. The main point that we want to establish here. So the first question: fair to vote women? Hold on. Is it fair to vote female politician based on gender alone? We say because you are aware of their gender, not of their capability. So it results in the tokenism that this woman will never feel that they belong there because they are there. They are there because they are elected because of their gender, not because of their capabilities. So you create a tokenism that says that people will look at you and say, "Oh, you are there because there are people who supports you," and that is wrong because we want to create a healthy competition. And since these politicians are the voices of people, they are the one who makes bills that affects the society, how the progress of the society. We feel that it is very important that the qualification of women should always be in the consideration when electing politicians in the first place. Yeah, one. Closing.
The structural discrimination against women is strong in every society, especially in Malaysia. How do you counter that by just simply giving
Okay, very strong politician. Okay, are women that they don't care what they are as long as they're a woman, and I'm going to support you because this thing it does not shatter the glass ceiling. The glass ceiling there that the woman can never achieve that because they always have constant blind spot. And we feel that is really bad in the terms that you will never be able to cure in the first place. qualified to run the country. So this one, at the same time, if we do this, not support women who are feminists, we encourage women to pursue education. We encourage to be better than their men. That within the whole thing. So, Madam Speaker, what I've told you today is that number one is the structure the whole time. We de-incentivize women. That says that women can no longer need to work hard for it, because at the end of the day, they'll get voted because, and so we want to ensure that we need to share the qualification and then gender later on, because that is what's more important in running a country. With that, go for a side of the talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, lead opposition. Now we'll continue the case side of the government.
Madam Speaker, we believe that as long as we live in a society where sexism is entrenched, where patriarchal views are the dominant ones, equal competition among politicians can never happen unless you make an active effort to first equal it out in the first place. Now, what OO wants to talk about today is that they believe in questions like, how do you know if a female politician is qualified or not? So we ask you this: what exactly is the merit that you want to talk about today's debate, and what do you really want in terms of qualified? Because even now we don't have these specific standards that determines what is a good merit. Like most probably they go through the ones who's most experienced, perhaps the ones who's credible in networking and education. We tell you that this merit, because women are hard for the society even prioritized in the first place. Like, how is a woman ever supposed to evolve if she can't even go through the area of networking or education or gain experience in the first place? If you want to put up a standard that can never be achieved, the system can never in your society. I'm going to talk to you about how this work as long as this in joining politics. That the moment you are joining politics, that means you are serious enough to care about your own people. Because joining politics includes what you want to wear today or tomorrow. It is a choice that you're going to live. You're going to stay a long time, and that also means that your life will be scrutinized by the public. And we believe that every woman is rational enough to think that these are the kind of things that she needs to take the risk if she wants to join in politics. And if she do that, we appreciate her effort, and we want, because we believe the change that she wants is sincere and whatnot, right? But then let's talk about what happens after the vote. What does this mean? This means that this woman will become a representative, let's say in a parliament or state assembly, congress, depending on what country, right? That means there's a female with power to like lobby or make policies, or at least talk to someone if there needs to have a discussion where you talk about women. Because now the problem in some current societies is that we are lacking of female representative. And if, let's say, there's female candidates that try to show up, other females are less likely to vote for her because we are so used to the idea that politics and leadership is only for male, right? But then they want to talk about tokenistic, it's just a form of tokenistic. We tell you that we're okay being tokenistic at the first place, because comparatively, at least a voice we brought up in a world where female are anyway, at the very least, we're providing an opportunity for that thing to change. Now, I will talk about how this policy is important because it is a much needed policy to break the long entrenched sexism in the society. Because we believe this, right? The root of sexism comes from the policymakers of the country, and unfortunately, 90% of them are made up of the male population. That means the members who actually experienced sexism firsthand or in a greater position to understand the plight of female members in daily life are not in the actual discourse or in the actual scene. Like, this creates a lot of problems, like you can see obvious sexism where females get turned down at job application just because she's a female. People assume that she's going to get pregnant and not productive. Or notions that she deserves because people assume that, you know, women with family, they can't bear bigger responsibility. But then this brings up the question to why does male mostly dominate this circle? We believe that sexism can be trickled down to the level how family treats their sons and daughters. The fact that there is no respectable female figure for families to see they shape the growth of their kids. For example, how you put responsibilities on your son because you want to develop him, how you encourage them to speak up and be brave, and you tell him, oh, you need to learn well because when you grow up you're going to be like him, this male representative. This does not happen in some families where, you know, how they treat their daughters to be reserved, to be polite, to not disturb people when they're talking, because you don't see an actual female figure on top doing these things. Especially in a world where the only outspoken female figure you see are mostly artists and celebrities who get tied up to controversies. You don't want your daughters to grow up this way. There is no serious respectable figure for them to see their daughters growing up, becoming that woman, achieving those kind of achievements. So we tell you it's about time we put this on the table, and this can only be achieved by applying this policy. But before that, yes.
Under your world that women really got discriminated and they can't find job and they have no high position, how do you explain that this woman get into power in the first place, the woman in Malaysian politics now?
Of course, it starts out slow. First, you put a female, the answers will be in my second level, right? How does it go, right? First, of course, at first it'll be tokenistic, but even if there's like one or two female representatives, you're showing to the people that it's possible for a woman to hold this position. What you're gonna do next is you're gonna encourage other female who maybe could do better to be a part of it. Because the problem right now is some women don't have a reason to pay attention to politics because they don't see someone of their own kind. They don't feel like I can relate to this thing because I know for sure this male leaders can't even relate to my own problem. And now when you encourage interest in politics, what's going to happen next is that you encourage people to join politics and role in it. The second problem that we already face in today's world, right, where there are women who are interested in some form of barrier because they don't know someone well enough to lobby for them, or they don't know someone enough to allow this leeway for them to be on top. And this is where this policy comes into equation and plays that role. Now that you have some female representative on top, this female representative can speak to someone to lobby for your change or whatnot, can help you to support you, to allow a leeway for you to finally penetrate this male dominant sphere of politics. And this is the most important analysis of today's debate, because we believe that the moment you allow someone on top, that means you're also paving the way for others to follow suit. And this is something that can't happen without this policy, as we've already seen in status quo. How interested you are, sometimes it's hard for you to win the votes because people seem like, oh, politics is a male dominant sphere, or it's hard for you to network because you don't know enough people in comparison to other males who know a lot of networkers who could help their campaigns and whatnot. And we believe it's about time we change how the game goes, and this starts by creating a proper and active move.
All right, thank you very much, Pierre. Draft of the opening by the dialogue. Refer gender pronoun is her. So I have to remind the house not to be a Madam Chair. Refer gender pronoun today.
Sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, after hundreds of years of oppression, the unfair patriarchal structures that true inspiration, which in turn will trigger change within themselves. With
We disagree with side opening government to simply taking women purely on the basis of their gender, and we think that certain qualification to serve the public is still required to mobilize change within society. We simply think that the overwhelming amount of women in the parliament will not necessarily equate to change that you necessarily want to happen towards the women, or pushing for policies that will be beneficial for women. Why, we will explain more on problems within my speech, right? So the objectives that side opposition want to seek for, like we have laid out, but let me remind you again, is that firstly we want to incentivize women to still seek for knowledge and compete fairly with their male counterparts. And secondly, we want to create an eligible politician who best represent the demands of these women, and these kind of things are important. But before I move on, I have a few rebuttals to go against it, right? Firstly, side opening government did not set up a clear distinction on the type of women that they want to present them in this house, right? So they told you that they want women because of their gender to present these women, but they operate and they think that this will be better for these women on the assumption that these all women want to fight for their own rights. But we see that things are different due to this patriarchal structure. Unfortunately, these women also have been brought up differently, and because so you never really know whether or not these will actually fight for the rights of the kind of their male counterpart within the parliament themselves, right? So we say that we are okay for women to enter the politics or parliament when they have the qualifications, or when they're on the same level as the men as well, because it creates the perception that these women are capable and not just simply there because of the affirmative action, in which my prime minister and my leader of the opposition have already told you about the importance of having these women with qualification, because you want them to compete fairly and to give the good impression, right? So that it doesn't embolden the stereotypes that women are useless in the first place, that they are just as capable. So we should allow them when they have achieved that capability, and we should, in the meantime, before they get to achieve remaining seats in the parliament, they should be allowed education and other kind of awareness, and give more scholarship opportunities, for example, for them to reach the same level as this man in order to qualify themselves within the parliament in the first place, right? So they talk to you about how the man already dominated circle, right? And how now they, under our paradigm, there will not be a respectable female figures anymore. But we see what we're doing is that if you think by making sure that a lot of females in parliament will dominate and thus make the male become scared of the female and thus want to take care more of themselves, we don't think that is the right one. What you need is just important figures who are strong enough to fight for your rights, and that men will actually think twice before they actually want to go against you. We have figures like Azalina, Mirul Iza, Diana Sofia, for example, who have this loud voice to actually go against policies that are not beneficial towards this woman, right? So we see that there are already campaigns like He for She movement encouraging support for all sides. So even if you don't have enough females representatives, because females just don't have the enough self-actualization to actually want to enter politics, we see that it's already adequate if you have male who are sincerely or genuinely want to fight for the rights of these female. We think that's also better for the pushing policies for these women, instead of you just wanting to take in all females without taking regards of what you think of the feminist issues in the first place. But before I move on, yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, handle with our case that we already established that it's a patriarchal society, but even more, you guys are supposed to tell us what qualifications are you talking about? Is it only educational?
The qualification is educational. It can be in terms of experiences, as long as when you put them next to the other male counterparts, it will just be the same qualifications. Because the kind of class ceiling that these women are facing currently is the kind of saying that they have the same qualifications, maybe in terms of education with the male, but they are obstructed from moving forward because their male get more preference compared to the others. So we're trying to curb this, right? So we want to allow this woman to still get to be able to go in front that without of you taking in regards of your gender in the first place. So now, let's move on to my first point, how this will hamper the changes in women or progress of their rights so that so that these people don't simply take so that people don't simply push them around just because they're women and they don't think that they are capable of doing certain things, right? So let's understand the spectrum of women that we have as well. Firstly, those who are enthusiastic about the rights of these women, and secondly, who are passive about what's currently happening, right? Because they're already like ingrained with the patriarchal structure and already been influenced deeply by their parents or their brothers in the first place, right? So these women who are enthusiastic, they really push for policies and they really want to create opportunities for these people. These are great for feminist movement. But what we are seeing dangerous when you want to allow in more people without taking care of whether or not these people have the qualifications, you're taking in people who are passive about what's happening, right? And they don't really understand and just fool around about what best serves their interests, right? So say if like suddenly a male come to them and just put their undue influence on this woman who don't have enough preparation on how to overcome this kind of things because they don't have sufficient qualification to counter or to be confident about what they are, they can simply like buy whatever kind of proposition that, and eventually maybe they can turn their back towards this man. Place, right? So how this will then lead that men will now hardly take women seriously now because of you not taking into consideration of the qualification that people might have. Now men will think that this woman, it's easy for them to twist or manipulate this woman because they are uneducated in the first place and easily swayed in the first place because they're largely influenced towards this woman, right? So these are exactly ladies who are strong enough to counter the kind of impression that these men already have upon this woman, right? So because of the lack of understanding of these rights in terms of like representation within the parliament, we see that this is dangerous for you to allow this woman without letting them to have certain qualification first in order to go against this man in the first place. So that's why we believe that in this case you should go with side opposition. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Diallo. This has been closing half the debate elected by a member of government with a gender pronoun is he, here. Yeah.
Merit is an excellent word. It's an excellent concept, if only it actually existed within the patriarchal society that is Malaysia. But before I move on, Zai closing government today has several things to do. Number one, we have to actually clarify and bring some nuance into this debate as to why exactly Malaysia is a unique circumstance when it comes to feminism. Why we have to use and impose such strict, such radical policies in order to get women in power, and two, how that will necessarily benefit the feminist movement. And okay, but first and foremost, what is the current status quo in Malaysia? Side opening government has already told you how patriarchy is strong, and side opening opposition has brought out to you the idea that there are already female politicians in status quo. Here is the response from side closing. There are female politicians in status quo, which there are. We say they have already reached the glass ceiling. We say they're given tokenistic roles, the Minister of Women and Family. They're not given any authority, any power, and they are sidelined when it comes to making important decisions. An example of this would be one Aziza, who won the Kajik elections, yet was still sidelined as Menteri Besar, just because people did not believe in her as a woman. We see that these kinds of challenges are what women have to face, and this is what is preventing female politicians from excelling in their field. But before I move on with my extensions, a few responses to side opening opposition. First and foremost, they brought up the idea of what is merit and how they need to have merit and prioritize meritocracy in politics. Number one, women cannot get the same level of edit that men can as status quo. And even if they did, they would be sidelined regardless of it. Why? Because there are already plenty of politicians male politicians have succeeded in becoming politicians regardless of merit. And we think the concept of meritocracy is a radical policy, and that feminism should be based on radical. I find this rather confusing in the UK or Australia. This might be the case. But in Malaysia, where patriarchy is entrenched and where women are openly sidelined, we see this is exactly the kind of policy that we need to do. Now, the DLO brought up. The DLO brought to you the idea that essentially, even if women in politics, they will have to conform to a male-dominated environment in order to make their voices heard. Now, we see several, flaws in that. Even if a passive women politician, we see that the exposure through politics of male tendencies and patriarchal tendencies will allow them to get the exposure and will allow them to fight back against, will expose them to what these patriarchal tendencies are and challenge what they feel so they can brought up to begin with. The backing of female politicians by feminist movements will give them the confidence that they need, the supporting, the funding that they need in order to compete in this male-dominated environment. So we see they will not have to conform to any male values. Yeah, at the very least, even if none of this happens, you have a female voice that can represent female perspectives. Because a man cannot necessarily understand the complexities of what it is to be a female in a very patriarchal society. A man cannot necessarily, or not all men, can fully internalize the inherent benefits that they get as being male. An example of which, off the top of my head, I can think of is wolf whistling. How some men cannot even understand why wolf whistling might be offensive to some females. That is just the example of the patriarchy that men internalize, but they cannot necessarily understand. Now, moving on. Why representation of women in politics is a good thing? Because right now in status quo, there is a disparity in gender representation. This means that policies that, although they are for women, are inevitably decided by men. We see that men cannot fully understand and empathize with the struggles that women go through, and that even if there are women politicians who do voice out their opinions, there are NGOs and rights activist groups, we see simply they will consistently have to make concessions. They will have to make concessions, and inevitably, once the policy is passed by this male-dominated majority, we see that those policies will be as ineffective as when they were first proposed. And the policies passed are not necessarily fully inclusive, but when women are in power, even if it's just one or two women, you necessarily have better representation. You can have a voice of a woman who can give the nuance and the complexity that you need in order to adjust a policy. And even if there is tension, even if side opening opposition says this women will not receive respect, there will be tension, they will be discriminated against to a certain extent, then there are still benefits to having women. Number one, because when you are put in that kind of situation, we see that woman in that situation will work harder to prove herself, because now she has the capital and the ability to work harder, and she has the opportunities to work harder. And so we see that is an incentive for her to do better in her career. Number two, just by having women in political fields, we see this will encourage other women to join. Whether or not they disagree with the rhetoric posed by this politician, there will be other women who will join because now they have role models to look up to, or people they want to overcome in this case. And number three, even if there are only a few tokenistic females in politics and tokenistic roles, they're not as easily sidelined as in status quo, because now they have a legitimate voice that must be listened to. Now you can't just dismiss them because they're NGOs or non-governmental organizations or simply activists. Now they actually have legitimacy behind what they say, and we see this is beneficial for the feminist community. And even if none of this happens, we say inevitably it is a step in the right direction for countries such as Malaysia. Perhaps when gender equality actually becomes equal, then meritocracy can exist, but not until then. But number two, how this can create a position for change and benefit and narrow down the gender gap. Frankly speaking, women can make policies that can better cater to women. Now, this can create better representation. And why do we say that politics is the first place to start? Why not finance and so on and so forth? Because frankly speaking, we believe that feminism and gender equality should be achieved from the top-down perspective. This means that instead of starting through the private corporations or through financial fields, we should start from the top through politics. Because once people can see female politicians talking on TV or giving speeches, we see that other industries too will start implementing similar attitudes. Now they can think, if a woman politician can compete against male counterparts, if a woman politician can do as well as a man as her counterparts, despite these inherent advantages, then we see that she can work in our company, we see that she can work in our industry, and show to women as a whole. And so anything that occurs at the top will inevitably affect the bottom. This is a chain effect. And so this is inevitably better for women and better for the economy. And moving on, how this allows a gender equal society, this will reverse patriarchy. Because even if not all communities accept this, because there are rather diverse communities in Malaysia with diverse trains of thought, we'll say that there will be some communities that accept this. There will be certain enclaves that will accept women's rights, and we will see that they have the seed to allow women's rights to flourish. And last but not least, once there are policies that actually help women, we see that women will benefit overall in our society. So, for the benefit of equality, go for side closing government. Thank you.
Alright, thank you very much, Member of Government. To start the last House debate, Member of Opposition, Prefer Gender Equality. Here.
In today's debate, we can see that what the side of the opposition is trying to tell us is that we can have as much women as possible as we like. But what they are saying is, which one is better? Should we have multitude without direction, or we should have few people with intellect? That is what we should be debating, or that is what we should be arguing in today. I move on. We are not saying that you should not vote for women. But we are just saying that you should not vote for them only because of their gender. You should consider other factors before you vote for these people you want to vote for. This is like a blind movement that cannot change anything other than getting a name and power. We also have representation. But what is going to be your impact? They talked about saying they are going to use for swing votes, which is actually what they are going to be used for, because when they know that this kind of people have power, some people will be lobbying for their power in order to get the vote because they say so. I was coming from this. When you actually take someone based on gender alone without qualification, then I believe that they're going to be sidelined even if you put them into the place, because they don't have a voice, and because their voice is weak, and they don't have it, or what's it called, they want to fight for. You just want to appreciate their effort because they are women. They can make policies. But the question is, what if she's not qualified? How is she going to do all these things you're talking about? Because qualification is one thing you should take in consideration before sending someone into a house or before sending someone into a den like a parliament. Also, they talked about there will be a chance for her to voice her heart. But the problem is, what matters, is it about the voice or what's inside the voice itself? Because when you talk about somebody voicing her opinion, who should voice our opinion on feminism? If a motion wants to be passed, does it really mean that when a woman says it, it is much more better rather than having anybody to say it? As long as you have something to say, I think that we should vote someone, anybody who has something to say. They also talked about they care about the country, the women care about the country, and the men. But if you want women to compete with men, then you need to send women who are actually capable, who can actually tackle these men in the first place. Because when you say that men can do a better job, I just want to vote women based on the basis of gender, it's not possible for the women to contend with the men in parliament in the first place. Because once you see men in politics, most of the men in politics are much more qualified and they know what they want to do in the first place. So you shouldn't just send someone there based on the gender. You should take other factors into consideration. So moving on to the closing government, they also talked about women are sidelined, and if we continue to sideline women, it's not possible. One thing I want you to understand is, if women are sent into this parliament, then they are going to be forever sidelined. They are not going to improve on their arguments or anything. Also, you talked about there's disparity in the house and we need to balance the house. This is not about, like I said before, multitude does not really make changes. What really brings about changes is the voice in it. And lastly, you said she has the opportunity to work hard. What if the person is not willing to work hard in the first place? You are just basing all your points on assumptions saying women can work out, she has the opportunity. Not everybody who has the opportunity makes use of the opportunity in the first place. That's what I want you to understand. We want people who can actually make use of their opportunity when it is being given, not people who will just be given opportunity on the platter of gold and not make use of it. Yes, please.
In the
case where a woman cannot fulfill this qualification to become representative, is the only solution just to wait for men to genuinely care? Doesn't that make women look even more useless?
Thank you very much. As a feminist who wants their voice to be heard, I think that you should not only vote for someone based on their gender, you should, purely based on gender, you should take other qualities in consideration before voting them in. Thank you very much. Moving on to my first point, which is misrepresentation. I, for one, believe that women should represent us as long as she is qualified to represent my constituency. I mean, if you want to represent, because when you send someone only based on their gender, then we can see that there's going to be a misrepresentation from that constituency. When we send people who are not that qualified in there, I mean, it's going to cause a lot of chaos, and it begs the question of why we actually elect people into positions in the first place, because it is not logic. I mean that it's the premise begs the question of actually in the first place. Is it because this person is a man? Is it because this person is handsome? Is it so we don't need to look for the frivolous? Is this person handsome enough for him to represent my constituency? No. Is this person we need to actually look for search for other qualities, make progress as somebody who cannot progress the community, and I believe move forward age. So why do you think that women are not even being represented in the first place? Number one, because of their religious belief and their culture. That is what's happening in Malaysia, because some people believe that women should not lead. That's their religious belief. But when you now say that we should vote for women only because of their gender, then I think that it's going to cause further harm, which is segregation and gender biasness. We are already talking about gender equality day by day. So, but in order for it to actually correct the gender inequality, we shouldn't form another feminist group who would actually be supporting only female and then causing gender biases and further, which is going to cause further harm in the society. We are actually not going to be okay.
What if they're being used or they're being politicized? Because change has been done.
For the last 10 years, there has already been changes. Let's say, for example, when we have 1% of women in politics, now we have about 10% of women in Malaysian politics. That's what we call change. So if you want someone who can actually inspire you, somebody who can actually be a role model, then we need to actually make sure that the person is not selected based only on gender, but based on the capability and qualities the person has to actually effect that change, to actually be that iron lady who people will actually look up to and respect when it comes to qualities.
All right, to end the event, I'd like to invite Lydia.
Saying women can only lead as long as they meet a requirement that, I remind you, was originally set by men in the first place is like telling a fish to climb a tree as long as they are able to. Or more like the fish only qualified to be a bee because it can, unless it can climb a tree. Right, sorry for my mix up words. Right, we feel that it's extremely absurd about how the standards that you set for women within society has always placed them into boxes and conformed them into certain roles that they never chose to even partake in the first place. We feel that from side closing opposition, we further brought to you the nuances that happen within Malaysia, the patriarchal society that has pushed women into these boxes further, and why a radical change within this society where the feminist movement is backing these female politicians will only create the change that both sides of the house wanted to talk about. Two issues that I've identified within this debate is under which side best caters to the advancement of women's rights in Malaysia, and why, number two, why the backing of the feminist movement through active support in the form of voting will instigate the change that is sorely needed in this society that we live in. But before I move on to the issues, I will first point out a few rebuttals.
The side of closing opposition came up with a very clear stance about how he said that women need to be respected in society, that women need to first gain the backing of the people for them to lead and make change. And this is exactly what we're doing. We're telling the feminist movement that if you believe in the rights of your own rights and the advancement of progress for women and your children everywhere, you now have to back the and the back they will slowly relax. Our side, because we are telling women and no to keep them in their place in society that men had already dictated from the beginning. No, please sit down. The idea that came up from opposition as a whole was the thought of meritocracy and politics of meritocracy. I give you an example of Donald Trump. He being the visionary is, I suppose, for building walls, is garnering support. Building walls are supposed to be. No, please sit down. Pullman, who is the COO of Facebook, women are less likely to get to the top because they are pit against each other, because they feel that to attain success, they must take down another woman. And we also can see that happening within politics about how Sarah Palin is forever fighting against Hillary Clinton because she feels, or because there is tension of will be the first female president, instead of which person can best women, instead of fighting together to achieve a certain success, which Hasman already brought up to you. We feel then that once allow more women to be best cater to the advantage in Malaysia, because other women get to the top, or two, you will never be viewed as an equal to a man which you never try. Under both these paradigms that happen within society, we feel there is no success for more women to come to politics, and by allowing a big quota of women to come in, would the women see increase. When the competition between each other decrease, the now competition that is microaggressions within society, the inherent discrimination that is structurally whatever societal perception that understanding and the voter has for the female that's in power. This vote of confidence will now allow the women to be further justified and further actualize what she originally believed in. That belief was wrong, but even if it falls back to certain societal norms that people were talking about, at least those things are still far better than the men who can never internalize what the women went through, which only uniquely came out from husband. So now, what do we say in today's debate? So the nuances that happen within Malaysian society, how women are perceived and perceive themselves, how this needs to happen to change any societal perception that has been imposed onto them, and therefore you need to go if you feel that feminist movement has reached the glass ceiling.
Alright, thank you, member. That was good to end the debate with opposition side, opposition with the gender pronouns. Yeah.
Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen, I agree that women can compete as equal as men. I believe men and women also are equal in the nature, Mr. Speaker. But in this debate, we need to look whether politics is the best platform to uphold the women without denying the purpose of being politicians in the first place, right? Because we believe that when you are being a politician, that's not only like you want to protect the rights of women, but also you need to protect the rights of the society as a whole, Mr. Speaker. Right, of closing government, opening government in the first place, right? Like different treatments to the females, and there's a lot of society stigmatizations, and they have a pre-idea that female cannot do their job as equal to men, to Speaker. The first question is this: whether there is a problem of perceptions in the politics, right? We need to analyze how do people vote in the first place, right? We have to consider the fact people vote based on someone who can protect the individual interest, also with the interest of the society as a whole, right? Regardless whether you are a male or female, people will recognize you based on your success, and based on what you did and what your change is going to do towards society, Mr. Speaker. And people will condemn you if you are lost or you are incapable to do your job, not because of you, male or female, Mr. Speaker. By those logics, we think the problem of perceptions doesn't happen to a specific gender, but to the one who failed to carry out his or her work in the first place. But second of all, right, they talked on how they want to change the public perceptions. And number one, the response is this: what is the objective of the opening government in the first place, right? You want to change nations by voting women, and we tell you, regardless without gender, you still can change the nation, right? We still have the policy by the government right now that still cater and take care about the rights of the women in the first place, Mr. Speaker. And also the increment of wages, for example, they're still equal between men and women in public sector. So we think there's no much problem of that, right? But number two, also they talk on how there is a financial problem of women if they do not get this quota, and it's hard for them to fight against another Speaker in a like election, for example. We tell you, Mr. Speaker, financial problem is not going to be resolved by their proposal. In order for you to make people vote you based on gender, you still need to do a campaign to attract female intentions to vote also for you. As you mentioned in your case, that female are still fighting within each other. People do not believe within each other, because so we think those problems are still to be solved for the female to choose the best speaker. And that is on how just to get into some politics, Mr. Speaker, and we tell you, Mr. Speaker, we think we cannot deny the importance of politics in the first place. Every day, if you just allow them without having kind of education or without having kind of experience, you will jeopardize the rights of society as a whole. I will explain later, right? Have a say. But second of all, they talked us on how the merit is very problematic for women to be as far as a man, to speak. They talked experience and education is very hard for women to get this. But number one, right, in terms of experience, I think it's not hard for women to get experience with men, because it's not something like there is like a specific reference that you need to do. What you can do is that you can socialize with society, you can involve with people in dealing their problems, to speak, right? So we think this is not like corporate sector, which is involved like a 30 billion like projects where you need to have a very critical analysis in the first place, or thinking in the first place for you to make a decisions. As long as you like engage with society for you to be a politician, to make people trust with you, I think this experience also could be gained by women speakers. So I think it's not very hard for you that you could tender in the first place that women cannot get this merit to begin with. But number two, also in terms of education, you also can pursue your educations and make people believe that you also have the educations in the first place, right? Yes.
In Malaysian law itself, it states that you do not need a qualification in order to run for a campaign. It shows that even when Parliament enacted the law, they believe that anyone can represent the country as long as they love the country itself. So,
Yes, of course. But in order for us to appoint a person to be a best politician, what is the best thing that he could give towards society? Of course, what his experiences or what her experiences and educations to begin with, right? But let's contend this with the nature of women, right? Yes, we agree when they say that women, once they enter the politics, are very committed and serious to this, Mr. Speaker, and we agree to that. But when you get voted by families solely based on gender, you will feel just easily because you get quota in the first place, Mr. Speaker. So we tell you, there's no serious effort for you to put forward your name as to be equal as men. But number two, also, there's always a possibility once you have won the elections, you will neglect your work and job, Mr. Speaker, right? I think this is very harmful, even though we don't have that experience and educations to begin with. But at least with the educations and merit that we mentioned earlier, those kind of educations and experiences could guide you when you have won the elections and you will not be blatantly to be voted by certain people, right? But number two, does only politician can change the perceptions toward women? Both sides agrees no, right? Because we tell you, perception also can be changed by everyone. Either you are singer, either you are artist, politicians, or teacher, right? Not only politician can make you a great woman, but being a teacher, you can teach a future leader. People will believe you as you can make a change to a society. Also, you being a sportswoman, for example, you being a Nicole, for example, you make countries proud, people recognize you, people give you, see, we still are capable in men in any sector as well. But also, but lastly, right, I want to talk to you. They talk us on how feminists vote for women, and this is a form of support, which is equal to quota that they want to change this debate, right? The harm is this: when you're already given a quota or chance, but you fail to carry out your work, people will blame you even more. This is what Khalil has contended in his speech, right? It will cause people to have less towards women, and your policy at the end of the day will fail, right? And so, second of all, they talk on how women can make a better representations and they can solve problem better. And that is the top position, right? And policy was just, you would just like to recognize women to be equal as a man. You can get the job and your problem is settled. We think no, Mr. Speaker, you also need to settle the problems that exist of what happens in Malaysia, right? We tell you, once you capture the problem of women, not just to get a specific portfolio for women to speak, we also need to get the problem of society as a whole, right? Under your sides, where you just allow the women to be recognized as a man, and that's settled under tell you the problem in the which people suffer and those drug trafficking or crime happen in Malaysia is not still be solved and more harmful. When women get voted by families who are really obsessed by female, you will only prioritize female issue, or even if you don't want, you will still be pressured by this community who has voted you in the first place, and you will not, at the end of the day, like you are not taking care of the problem that I've mentioned earlier, Mr. Speaker. We don't want this conflict of interest to happen in the first place, and that's why we think it's not okay to begin with under your side. The side of closing position, proud to oppose. Thank you.
Alright, thank you. Resolution not supposed to